Well,
Well, good afternoon. Hey, we're all sitting around here having a beer in Tascadero, California, and we're at Dick and Sally's house, and this is what, June 8th,
June 8th.
1996. And Dick is the head of the Ferrell clan, so we've come up here to, he's the wisest of the Ferrell clan, and we've come up here to just kind of kick back and talk about the Ferrell and the McLeod family. And
Sally.
maybe we should talk how many kids, maybe just...
Sally and there's Dick.
Yeah, that's good. Maybe we should just talk about just our immediate family, and then go on, maybe go back as long as we can remember, and some of the experiences and stuff. And there's Dick is...
We have a stumbling block in the Ferrell family. Terry was able to find who our great-grandfather was, but he was in the Civil War, and he would be out on the front for a while, and he'd come down with dysentery, and they'd send him home. Then he would recover and go back, and he spent about equal time home with dysentery as he did out fighting. When he was mustered, he was at the signing of the end of the thing with Lee and Grant.
Oh.
Yeah, I forget what the farmhouse was where they signed it, and he was there.
Oh, was he any kind of officer or anything?
I think he was an adjutant.
Adjutant, huh?
And he happened to be there. But then they mustered him out of the Army, and he went home, supposedly, to a little town in Virginia named Kentuck. And Terry tried to find Kentuck. It has been wiped out 100 years or so, and there's could find no records of great-grandpa after that.
Huh.
He just disappeared.
But they did have records before that?
Military records.
Military
Yeah,
records.
Now, what was his name?
You remember?
William.
William McLeod or
No,
William
This is Ferrell's
Yeah,
side.
that's right.
Yeah.
Ferrell's side, yeah. Huh.
That Grandpa Ferrell, his son, was born in Durham, North Carolina, and grew up there. Then he went to Texas, I think near Dallas, Fort Worth area, and met our grandmother, whose name also was Ferrell.
I'll be
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
And they were married.
You know about what years those would be, or what?
Well,
Probably.
let's see, Dad was born in 80, oh no,
Mom was born.
Mom was born in 89.
Uh-huh.
Dad was 4 years older, it'd be
That's what
that'd
it'd
be 85.
Uh-huh.
Albert was 4 years older than that, so be around 1881, along in there.
Uh-huh.
And they had Albert in Texas, and the cute story, they were heading west with a wagon, and just their belongings covered with a tarp, and way out in the boonies of Texas, nothing for miles, they see this other wagon coming toward them. So Grandma and Grandpa put Albert up on the seat of the thing and gave him the reins and hid under the tarpaulin. Here's this 8-year-old or 4-year-old kid driving a team of horses across Texas.
But that guy was...
And as they came alongside, he was coached to say, "How far is it to Nacogdoches?"
Oh, God.
But then Grandpa went on up to Washington State.
Oh, right straight from there.
From Texas, yes.
Texas,
Uh-huh.
huh.
And he got it. He was selling cream separators, that sort of thing. First, traveled by bicycle all through the woods up there in western Washington, selling that kind of stuff. Then he got into nursery stock. I remember when we'd go through the delivering chicks way out in the country, say, "Well, I sold that guy the pear trees for that orchard," kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then he got into cars. His first car was an Orient, It was a little one-cylinder buckboard, wood frame, with just the wheels, and he was hauling the mayor in a parade, a 4th of July parade, and the frame broke and left Grandpa and the mayor sitting in the middle of the street. From there, he went to Ford's.
Then he, Model T Ford or something, he was
Yeah,
a agent Ford or
the
something.
Model Ts then, and he brought the first carload of Fords to the Pacific Coast.
Huh.
Yeah, he was an original dealer for them there in Washington.
So it might be earlier than the Model T then, could have been, or no, the Model T was
The
probably.
first one, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So
I
what
think
year
that was about 1908 or 9 that he did that he started his Ford agency in Everett.
Huh, in Everett.
Wow.
Yeah. And, then two of his sons worked in the agency. Albert worked in him, Lester worked with him, but he fouled up. He embezzled some money, so Grandpa sent him over to Walla Walla for 4 years.
Okay, in the,
in the prison?
Prison? Ooh, who did this?
Lester.
Lester did.
Yeah,
Well, that's
that-
not the twin, is that the twin
That's
brother?
Dad's twin
That's
brother.
his son.
Yeah, his son.
Twin brother.
He sent to prison.
He sent his
Uh-huh.
son, his own son.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'll be darned, Walla Walla.
Wasn't he nice?
Nice guy.
Yeah. Then he, I don't know, I guess things were kind of tough in the car business, but anyway, he sold this guy a car, and something in the steering broke, and he ran off the bridge into the slough over in Everett and was killed. And Grandpa got playing around with his widow, and finally Grandma divorced him, and he married this widow,
Oh.
Maisie.
Oh.
And they stayed together until they died.
Ah.
Yeah. Grandma Ferrell was a true Southern belle. I think she was from Memphis.
Mm.
And
Her name was
boy,
Ferrell.
she had a Southern brogue that you could cut with a knife, and she was very dainty and so precise. Her house and her clothes and everything were. She was really what you'd call a Southern belle.
Was her maiden name spelled the same? Was it
Yes.
F-E-R-R-E-L?
I thought it was spelled F-A for years, but Terry said that he found in the records in Texas of their marriage that it was spelled with an E.
Isn't that something? That's,
Yeah.
that's great.
And
Do you know when the Ferrells, did they come over like in the potato, Ireland, when they came to this country?
no, I
do you
think
know?
they were in the South long before that, Jack.
Oh, they were?
And the South is just full of Ferrells spelt the way we are.
Oh.
It's like the McLeods who are there in northern Scotland.
Uh-huh, yeah, with the,
It's,
uh-huh.
It's
I'll
just
be
full of
darned.
them
So
down
they've been down there long time.
Yeah.
Down in that country.
somebody wisecracked during the years, I think it was Albert, that it was originally O'Farrell, and somebody stole a horse and they changed their name. But I don't know that that's true.
Well, Terry did a lot with the genealogy. Did he ever
Yeah.
trace it back?
That's as
further?
far as he got was to grandfather William.
Really?
Yeah,
Mm, I'll
Yeah.
be darned.
and there was, I think Dad had an uncle, Uncle Jerome Ferrell was Grandpa's brother, and then I think there were 4 sisters.
Oh,
I met 2 of them,
uh-huh.
and
They were up in Washington, or were they?
they were in Washington.
Uh-huh,
yeah.
uh-huh.
And then they had quite a few cousins around Fort Worth. But then Grandpa and that gal bought a grocery store, and it was run down. They built it up to where it was doing real good business, and they traded that for the chicken ranch.
Oh, nice.
That's how he got into the chicken business, and he stayed with that until he passed away.
And then you worked there for him up there?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
What year was that?
I went there first in 28.
1928.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and then I went back in 30, 31.
Well, when did your dad go down to Pomona?
They sent him down about 2 years before I was born. They thought he had TB, and the Washington climate was so cold and wet up there that the doctor sent him down. And there was this McGill family. I don't think they're any relation to the Ferrells, but they all were very close, and they were all members of this Christadelphian religion.
Mm.
And so Dad went down to live with them, and he was working in a grocery store when he and Mom met.
Oh, is that where, in Pomona?
Yeah, in Pomona.
Ah,
And they got married, and then Dad from there went to work chauffeuring. And he went to work for a guy that was a big sheep and timber guy out of Washington State by the name of McCormick. And he made Dad go back up to Seattle with him when they came down to California for the winter, and they went back up there
Oh.
for summer and fall, I guess. So anyway, Mom went up by boat to be with Dad while she was pregnant with me.
ah.
And
Wasn't that a rough ride or something? Wasn't there a story about that where she, I don't know, she lived in an old apartment or something? I don't know, I just
Yeah,
remember she
yeah,
was a long trip up
she-
there or something
yeah,
too.
she didn't have a very nice place when she got there.
Uh-huh,
Yeah, and so she came back down to Pomona, and then Dad followed her.
uh-huh.
Well, McCormick came back down, I guess, and they went to see a play. Ina Claire and who's the other guy? Anyway, they came out of the play, and Ina Claire's chauffeur couldn't start their car. So Dad went over and started it for him, and they hired him. They were out from New York for this play, and they hired Dad at twice what McCormick was paying him.
Oh,
To
right
be
there, right on
right there, took it right out of the car and fired the other guy.
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah.
I'll be there.
And then he went, when they left town, went back to New York, he went to work for a family by the name of Ingraham, the watch and clock manufacturers. They had a big estate out on Western Avenue and Adams in Los Angeles. And she was from the Black Forest of Bavaria, and she recreated it there on this 5 acres in town. And I was really entranced with it. Dad took me down there a few times when I was a little kid, you know. And
Oh,
she had little streams running through it with wooden ducks floating in it, and this dark pine forest and stuff,
Wow.
beautiful flowers, rhododendrons and that kind of stuff in it. It was really, they wanted to adopt me, but Mom wouldn't let them.
I'll be there.
Darn.
Yeah, I was saying, could have kicked her, huh?
And Dad went into a lot of things. I'll say this for the old guy, he was a hard worker. That apple, regular old thing with 2 horses with a whole bunch of tubipores laying in the bottom, and you turned them over and the stuff sifted down through.
God,
And he planted that whole apple orchard that way.
gee.
And he, I forget how many years they lived there. Well, from shortly after I was born until 1921. And he never made a payment on it.
You never did.
No.
You didn't have to?
Yeah, then he turned it back to the people, but they raised prunes and apples and lemons.
And he couldn't make any money in that short time, could he? Probably. He couldn't
Well,
make.
That was, how many of that'd be 12 years?
Oh, okay.
13 years, yeah.
Never made a paper.
No, never made a payment.
How'd we get out of that?
I don't know, the people just were lax, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Didn't
he dried the prunes. He had a big old thing built out there. They built a wood fire under this tank that was full of lye water, and he dipped the prunes down into it with a big old basket that we pulled with a rope, you know.
God.
And I don't know how many tons of the damn prunes he then put them out on trays to dry.
What? Is he
Yeah.
doing this by himself, or do you
Yeah.
help him?
Oh, I helped him during the war, when he had to take over Grandma's orchards, when Roy and Norman went into the service,
Well, this is in the First World War.
First World War,
Uh-huh.
1917.
Uh,
Dad then got some help. He hired a big Brunhilde from Germany to help him. Boy, she could throw orange boxes as high as anybody. You know, she was really something.
Oh,
But I always, Mom always kind of makes me laugh. I don't know how many times she's reminded me of it. Said the 3 of them would go to bed, Says, I always went to bed in the middle, and says, somehow or another, in the morning, I'd be sleeping on the outside, and she was next to Dad.
Oh, no.
All good. And he
You're big
named,
enough to do that, right?
Yeah.
and he named one of the dogs when he started raising those German Shepherds up in Val Vista. He named one of the dogs all good. You know, Mom never liked that dog.
Oh,
I understand that.
Was Mom working hard doing, helping him and all that?
Yes, she did. Yeah,
She had,
I know
so
she
she,
did.
she just had you, no, she had more by that time.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, she had Don and I think Pat too, just
Uh-huh.
before
This
she
was,
moved to Val Vista. I think
Uh-huh.
the rest of you were born on Val Vista.
yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, they, oh gosh, Dad picked the apples and stuff and took them out to the ice plant, and stored them in the cold storage, and prunes and walnuts. And Dad was a great one for putting everybody on a fast to cure anything you had. He'd have me on a fast for this, you know. So he had the walnuts and the prunes stored up in the loft, and what we lived there in was a barn with 2 rooms on the side of it, a kitchen that you ate and lived in, and a bedroom, and a path. That's all it was there, you know. And so anyway, I guess I got into the walnuts and prunes, and done me, I put the seeds, the shells under the bed, and Dad found them. And I got a 14 enema treatment for that.
Oh, my God.
Really?
Yeah.
Just for eating some
Yeah,
of
he
that.
was gonna clean me out. I shouldn't have that stuff. He was gonna clean me out.
Yeah, wasn't he great on tomatoes too, or something? Didn't he like think tomatoes were? I think that was after he was at Camarilla or something.
Yeah,
I think he was
Camarilla.
thinking tomatoes.
He was great for onions when he was young. He'd eat them like you and I'd eat an apple.
Ah,
Yeah.
When did he start the avocados down there? What,
But that was started in 1921,
after you lived on Val
when they
Vista.
bought the Val Vista place.
mhm.
But didn't he bring the first avocados in, or start
Some
the
of
first
them.
ones there
In Pomona,
in
yes.
Pomona?
Yeah. And he, when was it? Anyway, must have been before that. When was the flu epidemic?
That was right after World War I, so was
That
that
About
1918?
19, yeah.
19, I think.
1918 or 19?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He was dreaming of avocados then, and he had bought, I don't know how many big field boxes of avocados, the Mexican ones for seed.
Oh.
Well, here these were all ripening, and boy, I loved avocados at that time. And boy, we had avocado sandwiches. I got so damn sick I couldn't eat them for about 20 years after that.
Gee.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
Ah,
but he bought that place, and it was a terrible place. It worked. I worked by then. I was driving the teams and with a Fresno scraper, and moving dirt. But
you going to school too? I mean,
yeah,
were you
oh
doing-
yeah, when he'd let me.
the
Yep.
work came first, huh?
Work came first, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And the thing was, he really wasn't fair. He wouldn't give me an excuse, a written excuse to go to school. So I was marked up as absent and got 7th periods for it. Then he kicked me in the ass because I didn't get home right after school.
He cut his own throat.
Yeah.
You know, he
Yeah.
could have scribbled me a little note, but I don't know how many times I got
Uh,
that way. I was in 7th period most of the year, I think.
How did he and Mom get along? Were they?
Well, in lots of ways they did,
Mhm.
but they were 2 different breed of cats. Dad, as I said, was raised by a mother that, boy, she ironed everything and the house was spotless, and meals, boy, 7, 12, and 6. And if you were there at 6:02, you didn't eat.
Oh, wow.
And then
That
he
was quite
married
a
his
culture
mom.
shock.
Yeah, yeah.
Mary's mom that could care less about a house or being clean or clothes being clean or anything.
She wanted to be outside, didn't she?
Yeah, she wanted to work outside, so that was, I think, their biggest conflict.
Yeah. Well, it'd be a
Oh,
And
big
he
yeah.
never could adjust to that.
Ah.
The only thing I say against Dad, he was brutal. I can remember when I was a little kid, laying up in the attic or loft where I slept and hearing Mom crying him beating her up. He beat her quite frequently. For what, I don't know. He beat me unmercifully when I was a kid.
Regardless, that was no excuse.
And,
What, just his fist or?
no, about that much of 1-inch industrial hose. I went to school with black and blue back butt many times, and a couple of times somehow the teacher got wind of it and they wanted to call the cops. And he would have killed me, you know. He just was, for a little old inconsequential things, you know. And, he was mean with the horses. We had a couple old horses there. I admit that the horses were mean. But,
Ornery, but.
ornery.
Well, they had a right to be mean, maybe, because he
Well,
trained
I don't
mistreated
know
them.
this one old guy particularly. I hated him. If I'd go to put the bridle on him, he'd keep raising his head and I'm getting stretched up and wham, he'd bite me in the belly. My belly was black and blue all summer. Or he'd get his foot on my bare foot and I'd push and he leaned all harder.
Oh, gee.
Well,
I
he's
hated
trying
him.
to get even
Well, they had those
for
big-
what your dad did, maybe.
They had those big cleats on those times too,
Yeah.
didn't they? Those little
Yeah.
things on the
The
horseshoe?
horseshoes, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're a big horse
Isn't that
anyway,
awful?
workhorses.
His partner was a regular old cream puff, old Tom. I don't know Jack, but the other kids played in his shade all day out there and swing on his tail and his mane. He just, nothing.
Did Dad, well, this is probably later on when that Armstrong, where the Armstrong nursery was, did he plant that in melons and stuff
Yeah,
like that?
1 year.
Uh,
1 year he planted in melons and the next year in peas. I think it was about 15 acres. And planted with no water, no irrigation at all. He planted them in a ditch, and then I rode with one horse, or behind one horse, just a piece of 2x12 that drug it along with me standing on to pack the dirt. And he got a tremendous crop.
Well, that was good soil. That's right along Loma Vista, between Loma Vista and Val Vista.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I
Where,
know
where you
Armstrong
guys,
nursery.
where you guys went over the bank to, into the orange grove.
Oh, to,
Was it you and Terry, or?
no, Terry, and I think Terry and maybe Sonny Wilkerson, or
Oh,
coming down by the Greek Theater and came down, was that Model A, you mean? When
yeah.
They ran off the
Well,
road?
there was a road, a service road down, the nursery had a service road down through the nursery.
Oh,
And they
that
went
was
down
neat.
that,
Oh.
and come to Val Vista, they had, the thing, it's Model T, it slipped out of gear, so they would zoom over the road and out into the orange grove.
Oh.
And I mean, there was a big high bank before the orange grove. They really,
They just jumped that.
They were
yeah,
doing it for
jumped
fun.
on it.
Oh, this is another time when, I guess when Terry rolled a Model A on that, you know,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
coming down from top of Ganesha Hill, by
Yeah.
Greek Theater, and down
Oh,
through
yeah.
there. Yeah, that's,
But,
well, that's
I don't
beautiful
know, Dad,
country.
as I say, and then he got into all different kinds of stuff. He got into spraying for pest control, and borrowed all the money Grandma McLeod had to buy these spray rigs, and then they had a big freeze, and the growers couldn't pay him. And so he lost that business, and just different things he went into, you know. And,
He had all kinds of cars, didn't he?
yeah, he always had a
Stanley
good
steamer
car. Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah, he had a white steamer that really was some car. And then he had well, I think the first one I can remember was a Beely. And it had 4 speeds forward and 2 reverse, and it was a nice car. Then he got the white steamer, and then he from there he bought a Stevens Duryea that was a luxury car, but he took the pretty body off of it and put a race. He was going to win auto racing. He put this race body on it. Oh, Mom, never. She moaned about that to her dying day, about how that luxury
Ruined that car.
ruined the cars. Corona at that time had a circle
Oh.
around that had races. Barney Oakfield, I remember Dad took me one time on a motorcycle over to see it. And Barney Oakfield
Wow.
was racing, so a lot of the old
Yeah,
timers.
yeah.
But,
He,
Dick.
uh,
I'm gonna stop.
Mother about the little baby.
okay. What, didn't Mom lose quite a few kids? She had,
She
what,
lost-
10 or something like that?
yeah, she had 10 and she lost 4 between Don and I.
Oh, yeah, what are the causes most of them?
Well, I think now, as we look back on the way it happened, probably they were intolerant to milk. And anyway, they passed away, and Don darn near passed away. And Dad took him to a doctor in Los Angeles, and he ran some tests on him and put him on goat's milk, and he came right out of it.
Oh,
That's,
my.
Yeah.
What was some of the ages of some of them that passed away?
Well, I think 3 of them died rather quick.
Uh-huh.
But the one next to Don, I think she was about a year old, pretty near a year old. I can remember her, I can't remember the others. I remember her in her coffin. She was a pretty little blonde, beautiful little blonde girl, curly hair. And Mom had her in the casket with a crocus in her hand. And Mom never grew crocuses after that.
Oh.
That was their first girl, wasn't
Yeah, I think
it?
so.
Before Pat.
Yeah. uh-huh. But one of the, I don't know if that was the one or what, but anyway, she went to Loma Linda Hospital over at Loma Linda with this sick baby, and the baby died while it was there, and they wrapped it in a blanket and put it in her arms and put her on the bus to go back to Pomona, carrying her dead baby.
Oh,
Oh my God. Is
Isn't
that
that
the way they did it back then, or?
I don't know, but that sure is a heartless thing to do,
oh, isn't it?
you know?
Oh.
They,
And she was by herself. She.
Yeah, by herself.
Dad wasn't there.
No, Dad wasn't there. He was working in Los Angeles. Dad delivered all 10 of us kids.
Oh, he did?
He
Yeah.
did?
Well, that was back in the horse and buggy days when I was born. So by the time they hitched the horse up and Grandpa got down to get the doctor and get back out to where we were, I was already there. So Dad had to do the delivery. So
You.
he did it. He delivered all the rest of the kids. That's why we don't have a birth certificate.
Uh-huh.
And
And you were born in what year?
1909,
1909, and Don was in.
Don 17, no, 16, 16.
Yeah, I go the other way, I know that how much
Uh-huh.
space there is between the kids.
He's 7 years older than I am, and Pat's
Younger.
9 years older.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And,
Younger than you are, yeah.
but,
Yeah, that's something, I'll be born home like that.
yeah, that they said that I had turned blue. It was just about gone when Grandma realized there was a kind of a membrane sac over my head,
Oh.
and I was being suffocated.
Yeah.
And Grandma McLeod pulled that off and
Oh.
survived. And afterwards, in being with my aunt up in Washington when I was coming home the first time from the ranch, she reminded me of that, and she wanted me to meet her friend. So I went to meet this friend who was a spiritualist. And this gal just begged me to stay there and take psychic training. They believe that anyone born with a veil like that has psychic powers.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Do you feel you do?
No. I find that if I agonize, if I don't do what I think first and I start agonizing over it, lots of times I end up doing wrong. If I
Take
had
your.
done it first.
Your first thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I don't know what we can cover on Dad's side. I'm trying to think. He went to Glendora too, didn't he? Up there at that boy. What's he? Do
Yeah,
up
there
there?
was
Was that when he met Laura and stuff up there?
no, he didn't meet Laura. He lived on this orange ranch and did work for the guy for his rent.
Oh, up in-
And then he did avocado grafting and top working and stuff like that. Then he moved to Monrovia. Well, he lived in Duarte for a while before he met Laura.
Oh.
He had a little ranch there in Duarte, and then he moved into Monrovia and he met Laura. And when he was living with Grandpa was living with him then, just before she died.
Oh, a grandma?
Grandma,
Oh, oh.
Grandma Ferrell.
Uh-huh.
She had pancreatic cancer real
Oh,
bad.
good.
And the poor little thing wasted away to just bones.
She never remarried.
No, no.
Uh-huh.
And then he met Laura. So, he was doing some avocado. She had some avocado trees on her place, and he met Laura that way. And
That was.
he was kind of around her. I'm surprised she was kind of a nice gal, an old maid. She ever went to her because he had all kinds of gals there in Monrovia.
Ah, because she was a school teacher, wasn't she?
Yeah,
Take
she
care
was
of her
school-
mother for 20 years or
Yeah,
something?
her
bedridden?
father for 15. They were both paralyzed.
Gee.
Yeah. And, well, Dad helped her while she was teaching school. He took care of the mother during the day,
Huh.
fixed lunch for her, and he ran out of meat to cook for the old lady, and they had some horse meat for the dogs. And Dad cooked up a steak of horse meat. Boy, she just loved that. Would try and get some of that meat, Chester. Get some of that meat.
That bugger. You think you'd feel a little guilty.
He never told Laura. He told me one time. And then they sold her house and bought an orange grove in Monrovia.
Yeah, I went over there with you, I think, a couple
Yeah.
times when I was living with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they sold that then and bought the Camarillo place.
And that was during the war, right during the war, I think. 'Cause
Yeah.
I remember they came and saw me at Oxnard when I was in the service.
Oh, yeah.
And they were staying up there at the camera.
About 45, I think they bought that up there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So when Laura told me what she was going to do for us kids, give us the money, half of the
Yes.
money that she took off of the place, I told her I felt really none of us had anything coming. I said, he didn't have anything but an appetite and a Chrysler car when he married you, and he took your house and bought the Orange Grove and parlayed this stuff up to the Camarillo place.
Yeah.
And I said, you supported him all this time teaching school and supported his bad habits with his manic depression,
Uh-huh.
I said, I don't think we've got a damn thing coming.
Uh-huh.
She says, well, Chester would want you kids to have his half, and the other half is plenty for me.
Isn't
If
that
Dad had got his hands on that, we wouldn't have got
You
a
wouldn't
nickel.
have done it better.
Yeah,
No,
we
it
just
wouldn't.
away, we wouldn't have got a
I
nickel.
know it.
So really, you don't find many people like
Oh,
her.
you sure don't. She didn't have to. It wasn't in
No,
the papers.
no, no papers at all.
Just by word.
They had it in tenants in common, so that when he was out of it, she was a sole owner.
She was the sweetest gal that ever was. She
Yeah.
was just, boy, I'll tell you, she was very sincere.
Yeah.
Sure loved horses, didn't she?
Oh, didn't she though? I would say her only fault was that she had taught first and second grade so many years, that she treated us like his first and second grade when we went to see her. She'd
Oh.
fussing over us the whole time. Can I get you this? Can I get you
I
that?
know,
Oh.
she was just so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that.
But she was a wonderful little gal.
Dad died, how old was he when
He was 77.
77?
Uh-huh. 60, what was it? He died, I don't know.
What of just old age, or was it?
Well, kidney failure is what did him in, yeah. But it's Dad kind of abused his body over the years. I think he was great for fasting and this kind of stuff. He'd go on a 30 days with nothing but, he'd have a glass of orange juice first, then a glass of olive oil, and a glass of orange juice
Oh, my God.
several times a day.
Oh.
Or he would go on another 30-day one with nothing but milk. It was all he ever had.
I wonder
Get
why
him
he-
down to skin and bone.
Ah.
Then when he got manic depressive, he really would starve himself. The way I treated my children, I'm not fit to eat God's food, so I'm not going to eat anymore. God, all the stuff that they went through. And then Laura would send an SOS for me to come down and help her commit him to the Camarillo Hospital. Took two of us to do it.
Oh, it did? Huh?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They give him the shock treatment. And that snapped him out for a while. But he was like Pat. He'd get on a tear and he bought that great big old tractor, great big clean track tractor, and all he had was 2-horse utensils to pull behind it, a mower and a spring tooth harrow and
Oh,
stuff. He had that great big old tractor. I think at that time it was about $7,000 that he
Jeez.
stuck Laura for.
Oh.
And then he went over to Yorba Linda. These people held a big nationwide quarter horse sale. They advertised, they had people come from Canada and all over the United States. He bid in a horse at $250,000. He had about $3 in the bank.
Oh my God. Just think what that did to the auction, because they can't
Yeah.
backtrack on it.
No, they can't, you know,
Well,
everybody
they
gone
think
home
they
by
put him in
then, you
jail,
know.
didn't they? Or I mean, in the hospital.
Back in Camarillo.
Back there he went.
Boy, real quick. His first thing with the loony bin, I don't think you were just, maybe just barely born.
Oh, really? That far back?
I don't know, why he was running around with these two teenage girls. I knew them, they lived next door to the Lindströms.
Uh-huh.
And a guy that I knew at school, he was a horses, but too, he really wasn't a nice guy at all. But anyway, he was bragging around that he slept with this teenage gal all over school. And Dad got wind of it. And he and the two girls grabbed the guy and took him out and took his clothes off, spread roofing tar all over him, and shook a pillow full of feathers over him.
Tar and feathered him?
Tarred and feathered him right there in Pomona.
God.
Boy, here comes Pat.
Whoa, that was his first episode then?
Yeah,
Huh?
and-
It wasn't just because he was sticking up for the girls, it was because he was kind of out of his mind a little bit.
But they got him for, well, kind of out of his mind too, I think so, but they got him for contributing. Was what they dragged me into jail, and Uncle Charlie got Elbert down there, and they got him committed to Patton real quick. And,
I didn't know that they went back that far.
yeah,
So did he have episodes ever since that time? Or?
yeah,
Uh-huh.
pretty much.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how many clippings I got of the Progress Bulletin I was up in Washington at the time. Everybody that knew me sent me a clipping of that. Headlines, you know, the Progress Bulletin.
Tar and feathered?
Famous dad, huh?
Oh, gosh, what an old guy. He could be the most charming man, I believe, that I've ever known. He'd be so sweet and charming to people, and people just loved him, you know.
The couple times I met him, he was just the sweetest little
Oh,
old
he's
man,
always,
just
you know,
really
Yeah.
by the time he came up
quiet
here.
and subdued.
Yeah, but he had a mean streak in him, and then, God, he'd stretch himself too far to where he couldn't pay for things.
Just know.
I can remember, I don't know how many times, I went to the door to answer the sheriff coming out to take away something while he was hiding in the closet, you know. I swore up and down then that I was sure gonna keep my credit good.
Yeah. Poor mom, what
Oh,
put her through
yeah.
it too. Jeez.
Gosh.
Yeah, she's just,
But, and he moaned about the property settlement there. Mom got all the property. Well, hell, she got it with a big mortgage on it and an avocado orchard that wasn't quite into production yet. She had to carry it to,
was that Yummy Grove then?
yeah,
Oh.
that was a pretty new grove when she got it, yeah.
Was that house was sure nice. What
Oh.
was that? How'd they get all that money to build that house? Hardwood floors, wasn't there? And,
Well, Mom put those in after Dad left.
oh.
The living room was just a great big room with no floor in it.
Oh, it
And,
was.
our bedrooms, had no floor. They just had a Congolian rug spread down over the dirt.
Well, no
And the
kidding.
rats dug holes in, and I felt one crawling across me in the night, and I lifted my knees real quick and threw it in my face, and he bit my nose.
Oh, no kidding.
What was it, sir?
A rat.
Big old rats.
Oh, God.
Oh, so that wasn't, it was just a shell of a house then.
A lot of it, yeah.
Uh,
He got those concrete blocks for digging them out. They were made over in the Rio Seco over by Pasadena. And they had a flood down through there that buried all these concrete blocks. So the guy just abandoned his business, and
Oh.
Dad went over there and dug him out of the mud. He hauled him over in a trailer behind a big old car,
Gee.
and built that, and Grandma's house over on the other.
Oh, that was built of those too, huh?
Yeah.
Ah.
And even the tile roof was those concrete tiles, the whole thing.
Oh, was there?
So really, all he had to buy was the timbers for the rafters and the ceiling joists.
Oh. Did he, who built, or does he built the own house, built the house? Or?
Yeah, we did most of
Yeah,
it.
both you guys did. Huh?
Mhm.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's pretty darn good. built on
I don't know, it was about pretty close to 5,000 square feet.
Gee. I know it was landscape, beautiful.
Yeah,
like the fish
that's Mom.
pond.
Yeah, fish
Mom
ponds.
did all that, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, I had the grape arbor and the fish pond and the
yeah.
front lawn there, and banana trees, I can remember all that.
Oh, yeah.
Solar heat for the
The-
hot water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was really a pioneer with some of that stuff, you know.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Well, the last time he tried anything with me, I was a very subordinate kid, but I had irrigated most of the night, and he came, pulled me out of bed early in the morning. So he carried me out and going to dump me in the fish pond. I caught him off balance when he went to throw me in, and I pulled him in with me. I left home then, I never went back.
Was this a Bell Vista?
How old
or-
were you then?
Yeah, about this.
Oh, how old were you when you left home?
14,
14.
yeah.
God.
And I had some nice people. Guy had a junkyard. He paid me to sleep there nights so I could go to school.
Was that Jake's? or-
Jake's,
Jake's.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
He had a cot in his office, and he gave me $1 a week to sleep there.
Oh, gee.
And then he gave me 10 cents an hour on weekends to tear cars apart and stuff. Then there was a restaurant over there where I ate, and Dad finally came down and grabbed my pay. Because until you're 21, he could do that, you see.
He did?
Yeah. So the guy in the restaurant, he says, well, that son of a bitch, he said, I want you to keep on going to school. I was in the 9th grade then. So he said, I'd like to get out of here a little early. He says, you come on over and flip hamburgers and hot dogs and cut pie until 9 o'clock, and I'll see what you have plenty to eat. So I'd go over and have breakfast, and he'd fix a sack lunch for me to take to school.
Well, that's neat.
And Jake let me still sleep there. Yeah, he didn't tell Dad. No. But I mean, just, well, all
He
through
was
my
a
life,
nice
there's
guy.
been a lot of people have been very nice to me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I sure have been, I've been really possessed.
Yeah, you've done really well.
Yeah.
With a start like that.
Well, even
Say
to
so.
finish the 9th grade, the principal of the junior high tutored me 2 nights a week at his
Did you
place.
really?
Yeah.
Because he knew you were interested in getting an education.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and he's the one that taught me to do mathematics in my head.
Ah.
Yeah, he was a great one for that.
I'll be darned. Ah.
I don't know that I'm so sharp anymore, but when I was in the boardroom,
He's good.
I could go over these figures on our statements, and
Or
I could
PCA?
have PCA, and I could have the figures before these guys got them up on their little calculator.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, it was really a blessing that he taught me that.
So on Mom's side of the family, what
Well,
clouds?
The McLeods came from Scotland, and they went to Canada, Ontario, Canada, and I've heard 2 versions of the town. One is Waterton, and the other one is Walkerton
In Canada?
in Canada, in
Oh.
Ontario, Canada. I think that's in fairly close to Toronto.
Oh, uh-huh.
And quite a few of and then there was the Adamsons, where it was all in there.
What
And,
relatives are they to?
well, Grandma McLeod was an Adamson.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. And so anyway, several of the Adamsons and the Whiteheads were cousins too. They went to Pomona when Pomona was having that boom where the railroad brought them in and had realtors there to sell them ranches, little
No
ranches.
kidding. It's kind of like a
And-
land boom?
Yeah,
or
it was
something?
a
Is kind
land
of
boom. The
Oh.
railroad was just new then, in the 1880s.
Ah,
And so they came out and were doing so good that Mom's family then moved out. Uncle Jack Adamson was the only boy, and then there was two sisters, Lizzie Reed and Adeline something. We always called her Aunt Addie.
uh-huh.
And they moved there. So Grandpa and Grandma had, I guess they'd been going together back in Canada.
Uh-huh.
So he, when she moved, then he started out. And he walked all the way from Canada. It took him 4 years. He,
Years.
yeah, of course he had to stop along, and he didn't want to hit California broke. He wanted to have a nest egg. He was a thrifty Scotsman. He wanted to have a nest egg. So he took 2 or 3 cattle drives to Wyoming from Texas.
Ah.
Oh, wouldn't you love to hear his story?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, how did he, well, he was coming through Wyoming, he went to Texas with those.
So he was
Well,
a
went-
cowboy.
When he was going south more,
Uh-huh.
and in Texas, and he joined up with one of those cattle drives to
Oh.
the cowboy. And in Texas, he picked up a handful of pecans and took with him. And that great big pecan that was over Aunt Florence's place
Uh-huh.
was one of those seeds that he brought out from Texas.
Gee.
I hope
Oh,
they didn't cut him down. I
Yeah,
suppose they
I
did.
don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
But
about
he
that.
landed there and he bought 2.5 acres. And then after he got a little house built on it, he and Grandma got married. He wasn't married till they had a house.
isn't that wonderful? So
Orange
she
Street.
waited for him for 4
Yeah.
years.
Wait.
Where was that
That's
at?
something.
On Val Vista
Yeah.
or?
No, the one where Aunt Florence lived.
Oh, right there.
Yeah,
Oh,
on
okay.
Arroyo.
That house?
No,
Oh.
Was-
no, they tore down the old house.
Oh.
It was, Grandma hated it from the word go. One of the cousins was he was from Scotland, supposed to be a carpenter and stuff, but a little narrow, steep staircase going up, and, everything was real unhandy about the darn
Ah,
thing.
ah.
And that's why when Grandpa got sick, he apparently had a slipped disc in his back, and he was incapacitated. And then the pickers picked out his grove of oranges, and the darn guys that were supposed to haul them wouldn't haul them for some reason. So Grandpa got the team out, and I don't know how many loads of oranges he had to haul, and he had to lift those big heavy field boxes up onto the wagon. And he came home and put the team in the barn and never got out again.
Oh, he died right? I mean,
Well, he didn't die right then,
Uh-huh.
no, but he couldn't
Just-
do anything.
uh,
And because of all those steep stairs and stuff,
oh.
Grandma made we call them a tent house. It was boards up so far and then screen with canvas that rolled
Oh.
down, and then a roof on it, out under the pecan tree where Grandpa lived out there his last few months that he was alive.
Oh. You don't know how old he was, or just approximately, or? you know,
I figured it out.
uh-huh.
He was about his mid-50s.
Ah,
He was young, wasn't he?
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, Grandma, when she passed away, was only 62.
Oh,
You know?
gee.
It was back in the days when they didn't have the stuff to treat pneumonia
Yeah,
like they do
that's
today.
right.
Uh-huh. That's what she died of?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And partly that, and Aunt Florence to this day says she feels like it was malnutrition too. Said after Grandma died, when they went to her refrigerator, there was only a half a head of lettuce and about an inch of milk in a bottle. Was all that was in the house to eat.
Gee, that was up on Val Vista then?
Up on Val Vista.
Yeah, that's where Norman McLeod lived.
Norman
after
McLeod
that.
bought that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I guess that was his inheritance.
Oh, it was?
Yeah,
Oh.
Charlie got the grove where his house is,
Charlie and Florence.
Charlie and Florence,
Uh-huh.
and Roy got the one down on Glen Avenue. That was Orange Grove number 3, and Mom got the one down on Holt Avenue, but because Dad had borrowed so much money off of Grandma, they aced Mom out of her part of it.
Oh, for
They
crying.
used that grove to pay off Dad's debt to Grandma's estate.
Oh, jeez, poor Mom.
That's terrible.
Yeah. And then Grandpa bought he bought this 2.5 and developed that with seedless orange, they weren't grafted, they were just grown from seed.
Seedlings,
And they weren't seedless, they were full of seeds, but great big trees. Oh, they must have been 50 feet high, those orange trees.
Ah.
And when the fumigators came they pulled tents over them, they had an awful time. They had to get horses to pull the ropes to get the big tent over those trees.
They could sell them though, I mean.
Yeah, yeah, he sold them right, and then he bought the 2.5 acres right behind it that faced on Orange Grove, and he planted navel oranges on that.
Oh.
And that was when the first was, I think, Mom was born in '89. I would say probably his first grove was about 1885.
No kidding.
Yeah, when he first
Ooh,
started, so
that's one of the first ones.
yeah, it's a lot of the first groves.
Yeah.
The other people in the family, the cousins that came out from Canada, they all had either prune orchards or walnut groves or peach orchards. Nobody had the nerve or the foresight to try citrus.
Ah, I'll do
So
that.
they,
I was gonna say, how about looking?
That's fine.
so anyway, Grandpa, I guess, died in 14. I would be 5 years old.
Ah.
1913, we had a real bad freeze that, the poor guys were working night and day hauling oil and trying to save their fruit. This insurance guy came to the house to sell insurance to Grandpa. So he gave him Donald McLeod. Well, what's your middle initial? Well, I don't have any middle initial. Well, you've got to have one for this policy. So he pulled F out of the air, and the guy said, well, you got to have a name to go with that F. And all I could think of was Frost. So it was Donald Frost McLeod.
Oh, dude.
Now, Grandma and Aunt Florence blame his drinking on his demise.
Oh, did he? Pretty
But
good.
I don't think so. I think he was drinking probably to ease the pain.
Ah.
He liked his Scotch whiskey, I've heard.
Uh-huh.
And Grandma and Florence were teetotalers, but Grandma always had a quart bottle of good whiskey up at the top shelf of the cupboard. If any of us come in cold and wet in the rain, or coming down with a cold or something, out come the whiskey and then
Yeah.
some
Oh,
hot
did
water and
you?
lemon
Yeah.
juice and sugar, and she gave you a
Oh,
hot
did
toddy.
you?
And boy, it did the work.
Probably.
Maybe that's what you need now.
I think I
Yeah.
do.
That's what my grandma did too.
But,
She always did.
But she was, nobody dared touch it any other time.
Yeah.
So, what's the little gal's name that was Adamson there, on the corner as you turned on the Florence's,
Aunt Maggie?
Aunt Maggie, was she
Yeah.
an Adamson, or was she a?
No, she was a Reed.
A Reed? Huh?
Yeah,
Oh,
she had a brother also in the church, Will Reed. I don't know if you.
I don't remember that name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a
Did
Reed.
the church bring a lot of them together too, or were they all
Yeah.
just happening?
Well-
How was the church?
Well, they all came out. They were cousins and friends back in Canada. Then they started the church amongst themselves.
Oh, I see.
They
Church of
were
God or something?
they were actually Christadelphians, a good lot of them.
Uh-huh.
And the Christadelphian religion is a very strict one. They can't vote and salute the
Oh.
flag and all, kind of like the Jehovah's
Yeah,
Witnesses.
I was gonna
Oh,
say.
really?
I was gonna
And
say.
there was a lot of
Jehovah's
no-nos, and it was too strict
interesting.
for
Yeah,
Yeah.
this clan, so they broke away and started that little church themselves. It was almost all family when they started it.
Yeah, I can remember getting people baptized and all that
Yeah.
stuff in there. And,
Yeah,
that was a neat little church.
It
I
was,
liked it,
yeah.
Yeah.
and they never, until Norman, they never had a paid preacher.
Huh.
They, 3 of the elders would take turns giving a sermon each week. Uncle Jack and Ezra Adamson and, George Adamson or
Sounds
Abram.
like a lot of preachers down in the
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
I think Uncle Jack, to me, without a doubt, is one of the most religious men I've ever known.
Hmm.
He studied the Bible incessantly and could quote it. And he lived the way he believed the Bible. He lived a clean life and wouldn't hurt a fly. He was really a religious man, and he was tolerant of the other. He and Terry got into a big argument over the liquor, you know. And Uncle Jack says, no, he says, you show me any place in the Bible when it says you can't have liquor. He says, it's too much, you've got to use moderation. He says it's a sin to work too much, have too much sex, eat too much, any of those things. It's just as much a sin as it is drinking. He said if you drink in moderation, it's no sin.
And it's come out to prove that too. They're saying now drink is good for you now.
Yeah,
Just
that's
in
right,
moderation.
that's right.
Now Terry he and Orpha were really hyped on him when they first came out, when he came out of that school.
They really
Yeah,
were.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So was this Jack named after that Jack, do you think?
Could be.
I don't know whether I was John or Jack. I really don't know. I
I
always
think
took
it
up
was Jack from the
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
Of course, he was John, but they called him Uncle Jack.
Yeah. Wasn't he real intelligent? Didn't he have something to do with Frost? Frost
he kept the Frost records.
records?
Yes, he was an intelligent man.
Inventions
He
and
had
stuff?
several inventions. He and Grandpa were the first to heat their groves to try and beat the frost.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, and they did it with kind of woven wire baskets, about so big. They put out there and put coal in them and burned coal. And then they got to, that was kind of hard work, so they bought a bunch of milk pans and cut little tin lids to fit on these milk pans, porcelain finished milk pans.
Oh, yeah.
And they put those in the middle of the orchards to
Didn't they
heat.
waxwood? They used waxwood? Or is
Well,
that later
they
on?
did use the waxwood to start the briquettes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then Uncle Jack went on from there to invent a briquette burner so big around, stands so high, that you fill with briquettes and start the fire and put the waxwood on the bottom and start the fire and burn up.
Oh.
And they made a pretty good heat, but it was a pretty expensive way. Of course, oil now is very expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know how they can afford to.
Yeah.
And
True.
and he and Uncle Jack and Grandpa, and I can't remember somebody else, started the Sun-Kissed Packing House.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they
Whoa.
started a cooperative.
Too bad they don't have a bunch of stock of that. now.
Yeah.
Gee whiz.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I mean, they were pioneers.
Uh-huh. Yeah. How did Roy get his place over there on the, was that part of the inheritance?
No, he bought that after he came back from the war. Dad owned it first,
Oh, he did, that piece
Yeah.
of property there.
and there was no house on it, and Dad couldn't keep the payments up on it,
Uh-huh.
and so Roy just took it over and brought up the payments and took
Who's
it over.
Roy?
That's my mom's brother.
Oh, okay.
Roy and
Roy McLeod.
Roy McLeod, Norman, Florence, and Marjorie. But when did they live up on the hill when she planted those narcissuses up there in the tent? That must have been really above Roy's.
Yeah,
Up on
no,
the
we
hill.
never lived up there.
Oh, he didn't?
No.
Oh, I thought they had a tent up there. or
Well, she had
something.
a tent where she'd go up to get away from the old man.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
and she planted those narcissus.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The old road there and
Uh-huh.
up the side.
Of course, they never used the road, but it had a path that went right up through where Roy had his avocados.
Oh, yeah.
Went up that kind of ravine to the top.
Uh-huh.
you know.
Ah.
Lorena Baldwin and I set the hill on fire. We were smoking corn silk and some of them dropped into the dry grass.
Oh, shit. Boy, it went quick up that hill.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, gee.
Oh, my goodness.
So Mom, she was the four of them and their family, and Florence and
Yeah.
Roy, and then Florence married Charlie, right?
Yeah,
And then-
Charlie served in the same balloon company that Norman did in France,
Oh, First World War.
First World War.
Oh.
Charlie was a parachute rigger.
Huh.
Yeah.
God, one of the first, probably.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
And Norman had gone to a osteopathic school in Chicago and had a year 15 months or something of osteopathic medical training, so they sent him over there as a medic for this balloon company.
Oh.
Then, after the war, Norman came home, and Charlie, I think he was stationed in Texas for a while, and then they had a big camp over where Santa Anita is now in Arcadia.
Mm-hmm.
And they stationed Charlie there, and he remembered Norman and hooked him up, and he and Aunt Florence fell for each other. And
Met then, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh, my
interesting.
goodness.
Ah, yeah. And there was Roy and Elsie, right?
Yeah, Roy and Elsie.
Uh-huh.
She was an English girl, almost straight from England.
You said, I remember her accent.
Yeah, she had a limey accent. She was a nice gal.
She sure was.
I don't know if, I suppose she's gone. The last I heard, she was
I
still
didn't.
alive.
I haven't heard. Was she was one of the last ones? I think.
Yeah, she was the last one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I asked Malcolm about his brothers, and they're all still alive.
Oh, uh-huh.
Kenneth
Duncan.
and Duncan and Malcolm.
Uh-huh.
Malcolm is teaching, he's
Well,
I
not
think
teaching
he's
anymore.
retired now.
He's retired,
Yeah,
but
he
he
was
was at Cal
botany
Poly.
professor at Cal Poly,
Uh-huh.
and he still lives there. Yeah.
And Roy had the three girls, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And then there was Ross, Norman, the 5 boys, wasn't it?
Was who for for
Norman.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't remember Ross too well.
Yeah.
I grew up more with Duncan and
Yeah.
some of those.
I think Ross was the youngest one.
Yeah, yeah. And how did they get that property on Val Vista, Mom and Dad? They just bought that along with the whole ranch there where Grandma was, or how did
No, that was Norman's inheritance.
that? Oh, that was Norman's.
Yeah, he got that from Grandma when she died.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, there was 2 acres of avocados there with that house.
Oh, that was quite a bit of land that Mom lost because of taxes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's a few acres in there too.
Yeah, well, it wasn't tax, it was a mortgage that Dad had on it when.
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
Oh.
and so Urick was going to foreclose on the whole thing.
He had the paper on it.
Yeah, he had the paper on it, $6,000 mortgage on it.
How many acres they have in there?
Well, at that time, they'd sold the canyon off. It was originally 18 acres. They sold the canyon off.
Oh.
And Dad had sold the 2 acres off to Middleton.
Uh-huh, I remember those
And,
2 acres over there.
Yeah, and I don't know what there would be, probably 8 acres or 10 acres maybe after he gave Mom the piece of ground that he gave her.
Uh-huh, but he left with the mortgage on it, so.
Well, she got that clear.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Oh.
York was good to her.
Uh-huh, yeah.
I talked to him and Charlie talked to him about it.
Uh-huh.
See if there wasn't some way that she could have a place for her family, you know.
Well, that was nice of him. He
Yeah.
could have taken it.
He could have taken the whole thing, sure. And
Uh-huh.
maybe I would have.
No, you.
It was about the first things I remember really building that up there, you know, everybody
Yeah.
was building that adobe, Don and Jerry and
Uh-huh.
making adobe bricks. And,
The house on Loma Vista.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
they made them from the bricks down on the Val Vista, I think.
Yeah.
I remember getting your feet in the mud and the straw and
Yeah.
all that
Well,
stuff.
no, the mud was taken off up there. That was where the good adobe
Oh,
was.
was it up in
Yeah.
there?
Uh-huh.
Well, might have been something from down there then. I
Yeah, I
think.
don't know. But
Yeah.
the tile brought up from down there.
Uh-huh.
But they, Terry and Don really worked
I
on
think
the
it's
little house.
5.
No.
Oh, my God.
That was after I lost my leg, so I wasn't much help to them.
Oh, that was about that time. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So I got a bunch of telephone poles that were put into the rafters and that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Barco got them for me.
Oh, he did, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, he did.
But,
Did he?
yeah, Don deserved a lot of credit.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they worked hard on that place up there.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mom, that was a nice place up there. I liked the way it was back away from the freeway and everything.
Yeah.
And down in there, you didn't even hear the freeway hardly.
Yeah,
That was
in that
nice.
quarter like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dad planted that bunch of guavas.
Alan wants to say something.
No.
Uh-huh.
It's supposed to be the biggest planting of the guavas in the United States when he planted it.
Oh, on that side of the hill there?
Yeah, that side of the hill.
Ah.
And but they're an ugly fruit and they just didn't take off. People didn't buy them, they didn't realize how good they were.
Yeah, no, I like them.
Oh, I do too.
Oh, I love these things. There's just
So,
a lot of history to this. And Mom, during the war, she kind of worked at Mariloma.
worked at the Army base, yeah,
Yeah.
Army supply base.
Uh-huh.
Before that, she got on WPA.
Uh-huh.
She worked down at the Central School, was evacuated. They weren't teaching school there anymore, and they set up a place making shirts
This is during the Depression?
during the Depression.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So she spent 4 days a week down there making shirts for a little bit of money, which was a lifesaver, you know.
Boy, I can
Mom
remember.
went through some hard times.
Uh-huh.
She,
Sure she did.
you know,
Even without depression, she went through
yeah,
a
the
lot of-
depression with you little kids.
Did she
Right,
have any
uh,
child support?
No, oh, he never
Are
gave
you
her a
kidding?
dime.
Not a dime.
No. And I think one of the cruelest things I ever saw in my life was my father. He came out with a whole bunch of Christmas presents, dolls and bears and just a lot of them. And he showed them to these kids and took them over to give them to Laura's nephews and nieces. Didn't give his kids doodly shit.
Car or
Just
something?
happened to have them in the car maybe, but hell,
He
he
still
Wasn't even
Sure.
thinking, I mean.
wasn't even
Yeah.
thinking about his own kids.
No, of course not.
No.
That's why you went without,
He never acknowledged birthdays or Christmas or anything.
he was just a
So
cool
I never
man,
had birthday
that's
parties
all.
when I got married.
Oh, really?
I never liked him from the start because they.
Yeah, I know. Well, I kinda turned you
And
against
Dick
him,
would
I'm
go
sure.
see, I said,
Yeah.
how can you go see that man, he was so cruel,
Yes.
and gee,
Isn't it something?
He was still my
Oh.
father.
huh? I
He
know,
was still
but he
my
was so
father.
Yeah,
cruel.
yeah.
Ooh.
And the same with old grandpa. He was such a mean old guy.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
religious.
Yeah,
And you never sat through a meal without him all through it praising the Lord and bless God and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
He'd get up at the table and go out and beat somebody in a business deal or go to bed with somebody else's wife or something.
This Grandpa Ferrell, huh?
Yeah. Grandpa Ferrell.
jeez.
Well, I'd had about as much of his Lord praising as I could stand one day, and I said, Grandpa, you're the damnedest old hypocrite I've ever known in my life. I said, look at the things you do, and so damn religious. He cried to think that his grandson would talk to him. He cried to tears flowing like that old guy that got caught with a hooker down in Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You were up there working, he practically wanted to break, chip you out of your wages, didn't he? Didn't you have to?
Well,
practically-
no, he held my wages.
We held your wages.
Yeah.
And he invested them in something for me, but he wouldn't give me anything. I couldn't buy a pair of shoes, a pair of overalls, or anything. I'll get them for you. And the same, he bought everything. Maisie never bought anything in the way of groceries or anything.
Mhm.
But he kept it for me. Then when I went back, he used that money as a down payment on the ranch. I bought the ranch
Oh.
the second time I went up there.
Oh. Uh-huh.
And it was doing pretty good. I had a deal where that made the down payment, and then everything over $150 a month, I got a drawing account of $150 a month. Everything over that, any profit went to him to pay on the place.
Uh-huh.
And I had a darn near half paid for when a power outage came, and I had the incubators full of expensive eggs,
Oh.
and the power was out for 72 hours, and it killed all my chicks.
Oh.
So I went to Grandpa and I said, Grandpa, can I borrow some money to get another batch of eggs and get this thing going again? You didn't read the fine print in that contract, did you, kid? I walked out of there with $200, came back to
Was
California.
that when you hiked home on the
No,
train?
that was the first time.
First time.
Louise and I came home on the bus.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
See, I'm telling you, he was a.
Grandma McLeod, I guess, was really sweet, wasn't
Oh,
she?
she was a very sweet person, and she was quite an influence in my life.
Mhm.
She kept teaching me about right from wrong, you know, and stuff. And she had a long driveway that was about a quarter of a mile from our house towards school. Every morning she was standing down at the driveway with a sack lunch and inspected my
Oh,
ears and my neck
kid.
to make sure I was going to school clean. My
Oh.
clothes, she wouldn't let me go to school in dirty clothes.
Oh, I'd like to know that.
And she was a terrific gardener, naturalist.
Is that where Mom probably
Yeah,
did it?
and she instilled that in me. Then she was a great lover of music, and since I was the oldest and the others wouldn't appreciate this, I was still pretty young then, you know, 10, 11, 12 years old, along in there. She drugged me to all kinds of things. The Philharmonic,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and then there also was a traveling thing they called Chautauqua. It was out of Chautauqua,
Yeah, they
out of
have them
Chautauqua,
now.
New York, and they
Yeah.
had about 10 tents. They'd come into your town and set up a tent and have this bunch of shows. Every day was a different one for a week or 10 days. Then they'd already set up a tent the next town, and they just keep going down the line. They traveled through, and they had top grade stuff.
Did she take you to those?
She had a season ticket for those for her.
How about Mom? Did she?
Mom didn't seem to care for them.
Uh-huh.
No.
She didn't.
Houdini wasn't one of the Chautauquas with some of his tricks.
Golly.
And he, to me, the most marvelous thing, he took a paper cup, filled it with dirt, put an orange seed in it, put a black cloth over it. Then he went on with some other tricks and pulled the black cloth off, and here's a little orange tree about so big.
You remember that?
Yeah, then it went so much farther, and it kept growing, and it got up to, I'd say 3 feet tall, just loaded with oranges. And he picked one of the oranges. I happened to catch one of them, and it was a good orange.
How the heck do you do that?
I guess he was over here. You were watching some of his other tricks while somebody was.
I was putting different trees in there.
I'll be darned.
Sure was a crowd grabber.
I'll be darned.
But Grandma really was. She
It must have been a terrible loss back then when all that was going. I mean,
Oh,
she said
yeah.
so
and
young.
she was so thrilled. Dick was going to be her first great grandchild. You know?
Uh-huh.
And she died about 4 hours before he was born.
She did.
Oh.
She spent so much time with her head on Louisa's stomach, listening to Dick's heartbeat,
Oh,
feeling him kick. And so she was so thrilled.
Uh,
She was a little woman. She 4'10", 90,
Really?
92 pounds if she was
She's
wringing
that
wet.
small?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I guess Grandpa McLeod had a great big old full beard, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he was.
He toward the last he had it trimmed pretty nice.
Uh-huh.
Grandpa Ferrell had the great big one that come down.
Maybe that's the one I've seen.
I think that's it, a Blackbeard. Yeah, that's Grandpa Ferrell.
Oh.
Finally, the kids were yelling at him to shake the rabbits out so they could get a shot at him and stuff like that. He shaved it off finally. Yeah.
Well, Mom was, of course, she wasn't that big either. She had some of the traits of her mom, and
Yeah.
as far as the gardening and.
Yeah, she sure did.
Yeah, Grandma Ferrell was tiny, I thought.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, I don't know what she weighed actually.
Yeah, she was-
115, something like that.
Yeah, she sure
Yeah.
didn't know how to work. Boy,
Oh,
I think that's what kept her alive so long.
Oh,
was
sure.
her
Oh, yeah.
interest and.
And Grandma McLeod, before, they built the house up on the hill, and Aunt Florence and Uncle Charlie came up there to live with her till they built their house down on
Oh,
Arroyo,
the one they ended up with
the
there.
one they ended up with.
Uh-huh.
Then when they moved down there, Grandma would go down to see them, you know, and she carried a coal bucket and a coal shovel, pick up horse turds along the way to fertilize her garden. Aunt Florence was so mortified. Mother, how could you do that? Well, in those days, we were working horses in all the orchards, and you go down the street from one orchard to another, there was horse poop all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was working horses in the orchard when I was 8 years old.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Big old horses.
Yeah. The
Gee.
nicest thing I ever had to work with, Dad got a little team of Jenny mules.
Ah,
They were the sweetest little old things. Oh, they were so sweet, and they just amble along. They had a set speed. Boy, you'd sure get a lot of work done in a day, but they
They
sure
weren't
were nice.
stubborn like they say?
They weren't.
Oh.
No, they weren't. But they were sure nice.
geez.
Yeah, and see, there was several groves that the family owned that we had to take care of. And,
Yeah, you had
yeah,
a bunch of acres of citrus down there.
Yeah.
and stuff.
cultivating and furrowing out and that sort of thing.
How long does that go?
I got good training from Dad, I'll say that. And,
It taught you how to work. huh?
yeah,
We
working.
don't have to do it.
I learned that when you're walking through the orchard, checking the water in the furrows, if there was a weed, you stuck your shovel under it, you know, and how to meter water so that it got just to the end of the row, there was water clear to the end, but nothing ran off at the end,
Ah,
stuff like that. I was in demand from the other growers for irrigating
Oh, were
because
ya?
of that. Yeah.
uh-huh.
They all liked it.
Yeah, all the experience you had.
And then he taught me how to, he ran a steam pumping plant for a while, and then that steam car, and he kinda knew how to control fires to get the most heat out of them.
Oh,
So he kicked my butt till I learned how to set smudge spots so that there was no smoke coming, but they were throwing the heat. You know, you can adjust the draft and get it. Yeah. And he saved my life. When I was coming down on the railroad, we got thrown off in the little town of Cottonwood there, and
from Washington you were coming from? Or-
yeah, from Washington, and there was nothing to eat, and I saw this guy over there milking some cows, and I said, could I help you milk cows for some milk? I said, I'm hungry. Oh, sure, she said, I never milked such a sorry bunch of cows in my life. I don't think they had 2 quarts, 3 of them, you know, but he was getting some milk. And I remarked that he had a persimmon orchard. He says the damn thing. He says, I sure wish I could find somebody that knew how to prune them. I said, well, my dad beat me with a persimmon switch enough that I know how to prune them. So here I was stony ass broke, and he paid me $20. I was there 3 days to prune his persimmon orchard.
Wow.
So I got into Sacramento and took the bus home from there.
It saved your
I
life.
even went
huh?
in Marysville. I've been sleeping in these darn refrigerator cars on the slats that they put the ice on and stuff. And, oh God, all the hardships of hoboing. So I got into Marysville. I'm going to get me a room. So down near the railroad tracks, I guess I went into about a dozen places, and they were all whorehouses. No, you should have heard the insults these gals gave me when they found I wanted a place to sleep. So I found a place, a little Japanese woman ran it. It was 50 cents for the night, and she showed me the room. She says, "My, you're dirty." I says, "Yes, I've been on the train for about 3 weeks." She says, "Drop your clothes outside the door." I got up the next morning, and my clothes were washed and ironed and hanging over a chair by my bed. I offered her something for it. No, she says that.
Is it? You don't make them like that anymore.
They sure don't.
But I was in Salem, Oregon. I'd walked all the way from Seattle to there, and I see this train sitting over on the siding. I got a few little picky rides, but most of them were walking. So, well, I'm going to try this train. I was in a gondola, sitting there, and a couple of guys came by with a big police dog. "Now, where are you going, kid?" And I said, "Well, I'm heading for Los Angeles." "Well, you sure won't get there with that one." He says, "That's just a local." So we struck up a friendship. They were the nicest guys.
They're actually trained police or something? I mean, work for the railroad?
No, they were hobos too.
Oh.
They were heading for Susanville to get work in the lumber industry.
Well, I'll be darned.
And so they said, "Come on, we'll show you." So there was different the trains that you could get. They had different colored flags on them, like the ones with a green flag flying on the engine. It was a manifest, and that's the fastest one.
Oh.
And then there's a yellow flag that goes fairly, not too many stops, and this one I was in carried a white flag, which stopped at every crossing.
Oh, gee. Well, you learned the ropes, didn't you?
Yeah,
You
and,
sure did learn.
and
a
these
lot.
guys, they had a harness on this big police dog, and we'd catch the train on the run. One guy would get up near to the top, the other guy on the bottom step, and the other one would run along and hand him the police dog. They'd grab him by the harness and hand him up to the next guy and
Oh,
on in. So we got thrown off in the mountains somewhere above Klamath Falls. The snow was so high, you could stand on top of the box cars and you couldn't see over the snow. And the hobos had been harassing the trainmen. So they were kicking people off out there. And a lantern came down in the reefer compartment where we were. How many men down there? Somebody, one of us called out, 3 men and a dog. A dog? Yeah, we got a dog with us. Hell, I wouldn't throw a dog off in this country. You guys stay on. And he gave us the name of the guy that see down in the yards in Klamath Falls. He says, I know you're cold and need to sleep. He said they had big, long piles of sand with coils going through them to heat it, to put in the
Yeah.
sand boxes on the trains when they wanted to stop with the slick train. He gave me the name of the guy, or us the name of the guy to see.
Is it
And let
that?
us sleep there.
You lucked out there.
Oh, boy.
Gee.
So we had an awful time at Dunsmuir. We weren't having any luck. They had several railroad detectives keeping them on. There's a colored guy with a peg leg. And he says, you guys want to go south? And I said, yeah, we're going south. He says, I'm going north. He says, I'll get you on the train. So when the train started out, he went running for it, and the guys began to chasing him, and we got on the train. It was going fast enough then. They couldn't chase
They diverted him away from
it.
you.
Yeah.
They know how to work each other, I guess.
Yeah.
How did you end up out when you lost your accident when you're mining? When was
Uncle Albert bought this, went into this mining company out there with his inheritance from Grandpa.
this is out in Randsburg or
It's out at Ransburg.
Randsburg?
Yeah. See, when Grandpa died, Albert got the bulk of his estate.
Oh.
And it didn't take him long to pay it away. He invested in oil stocks and this mining stuff out there, trying to make more. And Grandpa's probably still spinning. But anyway, he bought into this company, and they promised me a job at $8 a day. So I went out there, and after I was there, they decided that since Albert was one of the stockholders, that I was a spy. And they were a bunch of crooks. They were working the tailings of the Yellow Aster mine, and they had this drag line that would drag this ground ore that had all gone through the mill, and the mercury had extracted all the gold they could get out of it. And then it was dumped out on, oh hell, it was a hill as big as the Canadian Hills out there. And they were working this, and I found evidence while I was there of 11 different companies that they'd formed. They would work this and show a profit in the coarse sand. They were in these big tanks, flat tanks, and they run water laced with cyanide over them, and the cyanide dissolved the gold out of the tail of the ore that was there. Then after they got these guys in, they would move this drag line maybe 50 feet, and they get into what they call slimes. It was a real fine ground stuff, like silt. You couldn't even get their water back out of that. And the thing would lose money, and they'd have these guys give assessments to keep it going, you know, and stuff. They were crooks. So they cut me down to $2 a day. Well, I was there and moved Louise up there. Hell, there was nothing I could do but stay there for a while. And
What year was this?
I went there in '33. I was hurt in January of '34. And we had this big long conveyor belt that took the sand away from where you took it out. The sand had been used up onto this big hill that they were making. And they sent me up to grease the gears up on the thing, and they weren't guarded. And I just got a new pair of coveralls that day from Sears, so they were strong. And the wind flipped them into those gears and it drug me right in.
Your
And
leg,
it's the darndest thing that the doctor couldn't understand. There's a patch like this, well, it's down like this with this end attached, just laid over and about that thick, cut off like somebody cut it with a knife. Something in that machinery cut that thing. Then it took kind of the underside of my knee, went out and cut the underside of my knee. Then it went out to about here and went down, chewed all this bone up.
And your ankle, huh?
To my ankle. My ankle stopped the thing. And,
Stopped it?
and I was hanging upside down just by, well, actually, about the only thing holding me other than what I could hold on was the artery. When they finally, it took them about an hour to get me out of the thing, and when they finally got me out, my foot was just hanging by the artery. Thank goodness it didn't cut that, or they'd never got me out of
Well,
it.
you would have bled to that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we go to the hospital, get there, they hadn't had any
Where was the hospital at?
at Red Mountain.
Red Mountain.
Yeah, just over the hill. And they hadn't had any customers for several days or weeks. And so the doctor and the nurse had gone fishing up in Tanglefoot Canyon up there in the Sierra. So they keep me in the car, this old Ford sedan, and they held me across the desert up there till they finally found him. And he was
Well,
the only.
you went after him, huh?
Yeah, they went after him. Luckily, he had his little package that had some morphine. He gave me a shot right away, and it was beginning to hurt by then. And the shock was going on, getting over it
Good
again.
God, I would have been screaming bloody murder all the time.
He worked on me for about 4 hours, I think, and he kept me kind of a little bit conscious. So he'd say, "Well, wiggle this toe, wiggle your toes, or wiggle your foot, or do this." He patched all those ligaments together on my leg, patched them all together.
Stitched them all up.
The doctor in Los, then they sent me down. He said he couldn't handle it. They sent me down to Los Angeles to a couple of doctors from Orthopedic Hospital. And they wanted his name. He said, "I've never seen such marvelous work as somebody's done with your leg."
Isn't that something?
Yes.
Oh.
But he went on then to be quite a big doctor. He, Dr. Drummond, he bought a plane and he'd fly out anywhere in the desert there to take care of anybody that was sick or something and couldn't get to the hospital or stuff. Then he ended up and he started a clinic in Ridgecrest, a great big clinic. I suppose he's dead now. He's a little older than I am. And not too many years though, when we were selling eggs over here last, this gal that bought eggs from us knew him real well.
Oh, you still
And she brought him over to stay at her house in Morro Bay and had promised to bring him by for me. And then she apologized and said, well, she had to leave in a hurry. He remembered me.
Did he
Oh,
really?
But anyway, when I came to, that hospital was full.
That
Well,
quick?
that's
Yeah, that
awesome.
quick. Somebody fell down a mine shaft and somebody else dropped a bucket on somebody's head. All kinds of stuff.
Boy,
That's
that
the way it
was-
happens.
That was really rugged living back in those days.
Oh, yeah.
Gee.
And of course, no penicillin or anything.
Yeah.
The doctor
That's a-
down there, to get rid of, I got blood poison real bad before I got gangrene,
Oh,
and they had to take it off. And,
oh, it was gangrene.
and I'm kind of grateful that they did, because they were going to bone graft. He said, we'll be about 2 years grafting this much bone into your leg down, and you'll have a stiff ankle joint. So anyway, this doctor, I had to drink a fifth of beer every 3 hours to flush my kidneys, to flush the poison out of them.
No kidding, that's what you did, is it?
Yeah, well, there were 9 other guys in the ward. Guess who they all envied? I guess I could hardly stand the darn stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, when you have to-
3 hours, you wanna let up.
Yeah. Then the little Seventh-day Adventist nurse, oh, he's such a nice young boy. He shouldn't be drinking this beer, so she had my beer. The doctor come down and he'd see that I hadn't had my beer, he'd look at the chart. the way he'd go, he knew where to go.
I mean, she was running the place. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
And I was hurting. The morphine would last me maybe an hour or so, and I was only supposed to get it every 4 hours.
Oh, gosh.
So I had a little night nurse. She was a cute kid and a real nice, sweet girl. And I said, you know, my grandma cured everything with a hot toddy. If I could just have a hot toddy, I think maybe it'd ease the pain a little bit. I'll see what I can do. So she went down the hall, and some guy was in there for Christmas. And everybody had brought him booze.
Oh, really?
And she says, I'd like to have one of your bottles of whiskey for Dick. Oh, take them off if it's for him. Boy, she mixed me a hot toddy. I was so tall. I had 9 hours of sleep. I hadn't had
Oh,
more
my
than 1
gosh.
hour at a time before. The doctor came in that evening and looked at my chart. What happened? What happened to you? I had a hell of a time getting her out of it because I was afraid to get her in trouble, you know.
Oh,
And
really?
he said, well, my God, if that's what'll do it, he says, let's do it. So every night he brought me a half pint of slow gin.
Oh, really?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
So how long were you in the hospital?
7 months that time.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. And then I went back a year later for another amputation. Was in for a month then.
Oh, well, they cut it up farther?
Well, the two bones like that, and this guy figured that when I stepped into the socket, it pulled them together and broke the end open. The axle pulled them apart, but that wasn't it. I know now. It's that the scar tissue is adhered to the end of the bone, and when I get a pull, when I step down in, if there's any pull down there, that pulls it loose. So I have to have a socket that's wide open down there. Carry all my weight up around the top.
Oh, I see.
Well, it hasn't slowed you down for
Sure
all of
has.
these years.
Never did.
I feel that I lived a productive life.
Good God for you.
Considering that
You sure
I
have.
never considered it a handicap. A damn nuisance, yes.
Yeah.
The darn thing would get sore when you wanted to do something. And,
You get on your crutches and
yeah,
get
and
all
stuff,
over the
you know,
place.
and
Yeah.
that, but as a handicap, no. And I think the thing that I miss the most, and miss to this day, is hiking in the hills and the woods. When I was a kid, I practically lived in the hills in free time when I wasn't working, you know.
It's kind
And
of
like to
changed.
hike up to Old Baldy and that kind of stuff. Hiking isn't too good on a wooden leg.
Of course not.
Run
No.
terrain.
It just
Not
doesn't
walking
give with it,
with
does it?
it.
Or it just doesn't-
Well, if you're going uphill, you have a heck of a time stepping over it, you know,
Uh-huh.
it's slanted up that way.
Yeah.
And if you're going downhill, the thing flips out from under you. So it's
Oh, yeah.
really
Well,
not
it
too.
slow you up a little bit.
It sure does.
Boy, I can remember you just every morning having to hop over and get your leg on.
Yeah.
How many of us have
Yeah.
to go through all that? You know?
Yeah,
Oh, my
Jeez.
goodness.
and all the years I crawled to the bathroom, I finally got me a urinal. I keep it.
Yeah, my
I
God.
don't know why I waited 50 years.
Maybe pause a little bit.
Yeah. Stop this.
Of course, we talked about her going up,
Up to Washington, yeah,
Uh-huh.
with that. And then they lived on this prune and lemon orchard, apple orchard. And she did her gardening. She had a greenhouse and did her gardening there and stuff.
You got out?
Yeah.
And then they, where I was born was on the orange grove, Grandpa's orange grove. They had a little house.
Oh,
All right, it's okay, it's all right.
Out on West Hole Avenue.
oh, uh-huh.
Oh, it's all
No, cut
right.
it out.
She's growling
And,
and growling.
Then Mom, when we went to Val Vista, Mom did an awful lot of gardening. I mean, like they grew peas.
Oh, right there, right near the house they built there?
Yeah, well, in the avocado orchard, they planted peas in between the rows when the trees were small and didn't shade them. They planted peas and picked them, and they planted peas over on where Armstrong went, and she ramrodded that. Well, she had to have hire pea pickers for that.
Uh-huh.
Then she grew, like summer squash and tomatoes and that kind of stuff, and her and I we went around to the different stores and sold that stuff,
Oh.
trying to make a living.
Uh-huh.
And she did that, and then after she moved up on Loma Vista, she did quite a business in plants. You're probably old enough to remember
Yeah,
that.
I helped her with that, I mean,
Yeah.
in the nursery stock,
Yeah.
selling zinnias and asters and.
Yeah.
No,
all
no,
kinds of
no.
stuff like that.
She raised a lot of
Yeah.
families.
Oh, she used to have those, just terraces, she'd do by hand, you know, dig
Yeah.
all those darn.
Yeah, even over on the neighbor's property.
Yes, she did. Then she'd take a lot of trips down to the Japanese garden, buy plants,
Yeah.
specialized plants that she didn't grow, so
Oh, yeah.
so she could sell those there too.
Yeah.
I remember we used to sell those zinnias for $0.05 a dozen.
Yeah.
I'd carry them to the cars for the people and stuff. But
Yeah.
Mom, God, she used to work so hard.
She
for
did,
it.
yeah.
And the avocados and going to the market, the LA
Oh,
market,
yeah,
take
we
loads
used to
of.
go to the market.
uh,
Well, I think I was 8 years old when Dad, we took a load of, a truck and trailer of apples, bellflower apples into the big market. Dad parked the trailer here, and he went off to another location to kind of cut it up and get, well, he told me to get so much a box for these things. All of these guys tried to Jew me down, and I knew damn well I better not do it, you know. They've got to be a game with these guys. They're all coming around trying to Jew me down, with the other guys laughing at them when I would come down on the price. Yeah.
Did you raise the apples yourself, or did you buy them?
No, Dad raised them. I told you about him
Oh,
digging those
yeah.
holes to make
Yeah.
this apple orchard. It was about 3 acres of apples.
Oh.
He did that way.
Must have did well with them.
Yeah.
I think that many apples. Then.
Yeah. I wish I could find a bellflower apple tree now.
Oh, was it a special?
It's a
kind?
good one for pies, one of the best for pies. Wasn't much of an eating apple, not like a Granny Smith for eating.
Yeah, well, didn't you ever let Bill Mom when she was making those wreaths and
Oh, yeah.
Christmas wreaths and stuff?
Yeah, I helped her for a lot, and then when I lost my leg, she got the idea of me selling them down on Holt Avenue on Aunt Lawrence's place down there.
Uh-huh.
And so Don gathered the brush, and I made the wreaths, and we split it.
See, that was a good job for you. You
Yeah,
had-
that's
you were
it,
disabled
you know.
there for a while.
And one day, an old man with a young woman stopped by. They were in a big Packard and bought about a half a dozen wreaths. And they started off, and they backed up, and he introduced himself. And he was the owner of the Mission Inn in Riverside. And he said, could you make some next year for the guest rooms and the dining room? I forget how many dozen of the guest rooms and 2 dozen 4-foot wreaths.
Whoa!
Boy, did Don have to pluck a bunch of brush for that.
Was that cherry oak?
Yeah, cherry oak. We went up
Uh-huh.
above Upland, up in the hills up there. And
God.
they gave me business for 3 years, and then I got a letter from, it was his daughter that was with him.
Uh-huh.
And Frank, what the hell was his name? Anyway, when I went to deliver the first wreaths, boy, you'd think he took me into a little private dining room and had a waiter come in and serve dinner to Louise and I. I wasn't driving yet. She had to drive me. And then he took me on a personal tour of the Mission Inn, the different museums. He had the doll museum and these
Yeah.
altars and all that stuff.
Gee.
Yeah, he was sure a nice guy.
So what happened on the 3
Well,
years?
he died,
Oh,
and
dear.
the company that took it over, the daughter wrote me a real nice note and said, well, I'm sorry, we can't anymore. And the father passed away, and the corporation doesn't want to spend that much money.
Well, Mom made them for a lot of years after.
After that, yeah, she made them before and after.
Oh, she did.
Yeah,
I know she had her regular customers first.
yeah, she had a clientele there in Pomona that stayed with her. Mom did an awful lot of things to make a little money that a lot of women wouldn't do, you know. Either grow some fruits or vegetables.
avocados or do yard work. She has quite a few.
Yeah.
It's like a couple places.
Yes, and several places up on the hill there.
Loud.
Yeah,
Well,
Loudon.
you can go get some for all.
Well, the ones that are up on top.
Schwinn,
Because,
the teacher, and the twin, the two old maids,
yeah, oh, yeah, we always like
sisters up there, she did their stuff for a long
You
time.
just think what she went through even to go to these places, walking around, and
Yeah.
walking up there in that old truck.
Yeah, she didn't have a lazy bone in her body.
She always said she never had an acre.
Yeah, that's what she told me several times. I said, Mom, I'm gonna kick you in the shins. Show you what pain is.
I didn't want to
Your
bother.
son's be so lucky.
I-
And, you know,
Let me do that.
she had an active sex
Well, you
life
can-
for a
you
long
can put
time.
this on the-
A what?
Active sex life.
Yeah. Yeah, she did. And her boyfriends and stuff.
Yeah.
Friends.
Yeah, okay.
The boy, all the grandchildren, everybody sure loved that woman.
Yeah.
As soon as that clicks. it-
Maybe.
it-
Like her.
I just need to-
Huh?
Maybe didn't like
Oh,
her.
that's okay. That's all right. No.
I'll get
come
it.
on,
Andy?
Yeah.
I know that we,
But,
because we usually eat at 5.
yeah, it was just all the kids.
Yeah.
But that's all right.
She liked kids.
Oh, she all liked all her own grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as soon as that clicks,
They all love
turn it
children.
off. Where it says off, that.
And you know, old Frank, in lots of ways,
Put your hand in there. The
was
middle
kind of a
one.
rascal.
Over
There
here,
was a lot to not like about him,
down below.
but one soft spot I got in my heart for Frank is how he took care of Mom in her last days.
Yeah, that's right.
God, I would go out there to see them and cleaning up her messes. He was trying to feed her one morning while I was there,
Repeat your throat if nothing.
fed her a lot of stuff, and then she heaved it up all over the table and him and her. Never ruffled a ball. That's all right, Mom, I'll clean it up, and he cleaned it up.
Yeah, both he and Pat, they're just those last days of her. They just, they,
Well, at that
Took her
time,
in.
when he had her then, Pat was on one of her tears,
oh.
and he was there alone with her. Yeah, Pat went to feed her and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, she's,
I went over to see her, and the darn place would,
she loves food from.
had her laying on a bed with just a diaper
It
on.
might be better from the
Not a
table.
sheet or
yeah,
anything, but
yeah.
damn air conditioned, she was like an ice cube several times when I went there.
It sure is
I
hard.
crawled into bed and cuddled up to her and tried to warm her up a little bit while I was there.
Yeah, that's what they say you're supposed to do if somebody's cold, just to,
Yeah.
you know, if like.
But, I don't think she really knew, half the time that I was there. Uh, Terry thinks that she recognized him, but, and knowing, after being there day after day, I kinda wondered if he did.
I got a kick out of one night, they were over at Pat and Frank's and Mom's, and we were playing, Marilyn was there, and all of us were there, and we were playing this, Frank was playing this kind of dancing music, and boy, you had to see her come to life.
Yeah.
That's
Didn't
one.
she though?
Oh, she
I
did.
never
Were you
forget
there when she
that.
made us, said, what's the matter with you guys, you tired?
Yeah.
Frank, and she was out dancing, both of
I
us
never
got.
forget
I
that.
know.
It just brought something back in her.
They
that-
say the
Yeah.
music can do that to people,
Yeah,
and
they
you know
say.
it does. It just brings back memories of other times, and
Uh-huh,
She
boy,
just-
she just
Well, you
didn't
take
let
that
it go.
pod gathering that she did. I wasn't man enough to do it,
Oh,
you
I
know.
wasn't either. That's, how many millions of times has she
Bent over.
been over to pick a pod?
yeah.
And then after that, to work them and
Yeah,
bleach
bleach
them
them
and
and sort them.
ship them. And
Oh, gosh.
and that's why she was saved a little bit of money, I think, off of that. I mean, she worked
Yeah,
hard.
she made more some years than I made off my chickens,
I'll
just
be
in that couple of months.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Ah,
She, when I'd go down for a board meeting, she'd grab me to
help. Tell
haul them down to Long Beach for her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
She
okay.
didn't like to drive down there too much, so
Yeah,
we'd go.
yeah.
Oh, what a job.
Yeah, yeah.
I was surprised that somebody in the family did keep that going.
I thought maybe Pat or Marilyn, or
I
Pat
thought Pat
especially.
would do
it.
Yeah, or maybe one of the Menace's
Mary
kids.
Lou or
Yeah.
somebody like that.
Yeah, but I guess it just got so commercialized too. I think that she was having a little hard time at the last, where she was, they wouldn't take everything that she had.
It might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, she sure had a, that's what kept her, yeah, I get a kick out of her when she drive all the way to Bishop.
Yeah.
That Camaro.
Oh, I laughed when she wanted to get that Camaro, or that big one, you know,
Oh, that,
with the big engine and
Yeah.
everything. She wanted me to go down and look at it to see if she got a good deal, and I said, well, Mom, yeah, I think for this, but I said, don't you think that you ought to have something with a smaller engine that'd be more economical? No, when I step on it, I want it to go. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that, all went back to, when she got wrecked in that Franklin. Dad had a Franklin sedan for her. And all you kids, I don't know, maybe you weren't even, no, you weren't born yet, but all the kids were in it. And she was going across an intersection and some guy ran a stop sign, and that thing didn't have guts enough to gun it to get out of his way.
oh,
And it rolled that thing over with plate glass flying everywhere.
with all the kids there?
All the kids in there, and I think there was about 3 little scratches, and all the kids got. So one of them didn't get stabbed to death with that broken glass.
Ah. So
From
she
then on,
was-
she wanted a powerful car.
Yeah, I've seen her stop there at Cal Gas where I worked in that gravel there, and boy, would she take off the kid. The workers really got a bang out of it. There goes Grandma.
Yeah.
Spin
Well,
out of there.
The last time I rode with her, my car, Buick, something went wrong with it, I can't remember what now, and I took it down to Clark Brothers and had her come and get me. It was on Holt Avenue, which is 4 lanes each way, and she went boom right into it, tires were screeching. I said, Mom, you didn't look, I had my hand out.
She drove there a few years she shouldn't have been driving.
Yeah.
She'd go down to the market.
Yeah, no
she,
license.
she didn't want it, but what the heck's she supposed to do? You
Yeah.
know? Yeah, she's just.
Yeah. Well, a great old gal.
She,
Her and Aunt Florence were just different people.
yeah, and yet they were really close.
Yeah, they're real close, wasn't they? But they're entirely different
Mhm.
personalities.
Yeah, yeah. I got a kick out of the way she was clearing the top of that hill and was gonna.
You got any more questions that we didn't think of in